There's something I learned in my early days in selling, and that was there weren't any teachers to help you learn how to sell. And if you wanted sales trainers, well, that was something that possibly didn't exist. If it did, I wasn't privy to it. And most people that knew something about selling wouldn't share it because they wanted to hold it very close to their chest. It was their position and their income that they felt could be at stake. Now, I started selling 56 years ago, and round about 12 months after I started in sales, and I didn't do too well to start with, I was then mentored, luckily, by a man called Les Adams. Now, Les was a very knowledgeable man in sales. He was also a very caring man, but he was also very strict and made sure that I adhered to what he directed me at every point. But then again, in those days, my parents were very strict as well. Now, Les never had children, so I was fortunate enough because he treated me like a son, and we stayed in touch until he passed away. We were friends all of that time. But what I'm sharing this with you now is this. I learned a lot because of Les. He gave me a lot of shortcuts in life, and they remain throughout my selling career. But what I've achieved in my time in selling, you can achieve in so much less time because people like me are prepared to pass information on to people like you. Now, what I can share is vastly different to what others may have been teaching you in sales. But then again, my sharing is based on my years of experience. And don't forget, it was 55 years ago that a man called Les Adams took me under his wing and helped make me what I am. So please allow me to pass on what I know, and that should help you make who you are, because you can achieve anything you want in life if you want it badly enough. On the other hand, when I first started in sales, there was very little sales training available of any sort by anyone, except perhaps some of those larger direct selling companies. Now, apart from that, it was mainly go as you learn and pick up what you can from anyone you can outside the business houses that had some form of association with selling companies that are based in the USA. And I guess I was one of the luckier ones as I floundered for a little under a year when a man in his late 50s, around 40 years older than me, took me under his wing. And based on my approach to selling and the volume of questions I asked, he actually took a liking to what I was doing. His name was Les Adams, and Les told me that he would help me providing I didn't ask questions from anyone else that would listen to me. And for a while, I did exactly what Les told me, and my selling improved immensely. But after a while, I asked someone else a few things based on what I saw him do and felt what I heard wasn't right. So I then went to Les with what I'd heard, which Les said to me, "What? I told you not to ask others." And he then laid down the law once again and told me if I wanted to learn from him, that I was not to ask anyone else because that advice could be wrong. And you know what? Les was right. And what Les told me I realized later was the foundation I needed to move forward. It was real 24-carat gold. And over the next year, I learned so much and I was selling so much more than the others in the team that when the sales supervisor left, I was promoted into that role. And I was only 19 years old. And by the age of 20, I'd earned enough to start my own business. In fact, at around that time, I could afford to buy a 1960 Jaguar Mark II 2.8, and I distinctly remember my father asking where I got that money from. because he'd worked for the same company at that time for 20 years and had achieved the status of leading hand. And I was earning 2 or 3 times more than what he was with only a few years of selling under my belt. But that's another story.